Um, what about the Gonzalo Lira take on things? I caught the butt end of your video about that. And I'm trying to figure out what was going on and what was your um, thoughts on the capture of Gonzalo Lira and stuff like that. Because I'm not too familiar with him, but I caught the butt end of what you were saying. What's going on with him?
Well, I mean, the honest answer is I don't know. I mean, why was Gonzalo Lira in Ukraine to begin with? Why was he in Kharkov? Um, this is a man who, made a career out of, he was a film producer living in Los Angeles. Then he became a lifestyle coach. I don't know exactly what that is, but I do know that there's a lot of women out there that hate him for what he's said, what he's represented. That's between them and him. I respect everybody's position. None of my business. I don't care. Gonzalo Lira didn't register on my radar screen at all until he got evicted from Kiev at the beginning of the conflict. He moved to Kharkov. At least some people say that. There's others that say he was in Kharkov the whole time. I don't know. Why did he go to Ukraine? Apparently, the lifestyle coach fell in love with a Ukrainian girl on a dating site and went to Ukraine and married her. And they had 2 kids. God bless him. God bless their children. I'm not denigrating that at all. That's great. Family, perfect. I don't care. It's not on my radar screen, not part of my life. He starts posting videos. He walks around Kharkov and he posts videos during, after the conflict or even before the conflict that are contradictory to the official Ukrainian narrative. And he puts those videos out there and people start watching those videos. And then people start, calling him up and talking to him. And he becomes sort of an overnight internet sensation. Suddenly Gonzalo Lira is the voice on the ground, behind the scenes in Ukraine, posting these things, talking about things. He's not a geopolitical analyst. We'll just say that right off the bat. He's a lifestyle coach. That's it. His skill set is not there, but he's seeing things. And so he starts opining about things, to be honest, things he doesn't know. But what he becomes good at is leading a conversation. People come to him and then he starts bringing guests on. He starts talking to the guests, interviewing the guests. And that's how I got to know him. I was asked to be part of a YouTube exchange with him, hosted by the Duran. You may have heard of them. And they brought me on the first time. We couldn't get the connectivity because he was in Kharkov, so we did what's called a Twitter Spaces. So I guess we went on there. There's very successful Spaces. I don't know how many people watched, but there were a lot. Gonzalo Lira was very happy. He then, through the Duran, asked me to come back on in April, I think April 11th, around that time frame. I went on his show, and we did another interview. And at the time, I kept asking him because I was put on a death list called the Mirotvorets death list. It's put out by the SBU, the Ukrainian intelligence service, and it kills people for speaking out against the Ukrainian government. Gonzalo Lira was on that death list. And yet he's broadcasting on YouTube using IP address that can be located that quick by the SBU that has him on a death list. But he's broadcasting. And I'm like, dude, this is dangerous. Why are you doing this? I got it all under control. It's all taken care of. And I'm like, it ain't. What you're doing right now, I could find you. Okay. Why are you doing this? You need to be careful. On his Twitter page, he posted, he listed names. I forget how many names he listed. It's still there if you go to his Twitter page. And he said, if I ever disappear for more than 12 hours, add my name to this list. And that list contained people who had been arrested by the SBU, murdered by the SBU, tortured by the SBU, disappeared by the SBU. That's what he's straight up. If I ever disappear for more than 12 hours, add my name to this list. I'm like, well, this guy's got a death wish. The next day, he disappears. Gone. I get a phone call from George Galloway, a British politician who runs a very successful podcast known as Mother of All Talk Shows, Moats. And he says, Gonzalo's supposed to come on and be interviewed. Do you know anything where he is? I said, I have no idea where he is. None. Next day, he's still gone. Next day, he's still gone. and nobody's talking. I mean, no media is talking about this. Here's this guy he was a big personality. I mean, online he had tens of thousands of followers. People, his name was known, and he's missing, gone. Nobody's hearing anything. So I started tweeting, hey, Gonzalo said if his name's on this list and he's gone, assume the worst. And then there was another account that came from a Ukrainian Nazi, guy nicknamed the boatswain, who was bragging that Kraken, a Nazi unit, had arrested Gonzalo, and there was a Kraken guy making an insinuation that Gonzalo had been killed, that he'd been liquidated. So, I said, if this is true, and they've killed Gonzalo Lira, then we need to, there needs to be a shout, there needs to be a hue, an outcry, blah, blah, blah. And then I wrote an article that said the same thing. But the important thing I said, if the reports of his death are true, I wasn't taking the lead and saying, I believe Gonzalo's dead. What I was saying is the Kraken unit is broadcasting that they arrested this guy and they say they killed him. Gonzalo said if he's gone for more than 12 hours, I should put his name on that list. Why? Because the SBU, the Kraken, arrest and kill people. So I said, if this is true, why aren't we screaming about this? Why aren't we talking about this? And I wrote this article. Literally 2 days later, Gonzalo reappears. Healthy. He won't really explain what happened. He says he was arrested by the SBU. Just think about it. The SBU has a hit list where they kill people for broadcasting bad things about Ukraine. Gonzalo Lira was broadcasting bad things about Ukraine. He was arrested by the SBU, and he was freed, intact. Now, for me, in my former intelligence background, it's like, red flag, we need to know more about this. What's going on here? Why isn't he dead? I'm glad he's not dead. Thank goodness Gonzalo's alive. I'm very grateful that he's not dead, but why? And then he starts broadcasting the same stuff, but more. He creates a YouTube channel called The Round Table. He starts bringing in all these guests, and they start talking about Ukraine in the worst possible. And I'm going, what's going on here? The SBU arrested him, released him, and they're letting him do this stuff all over again. And then Gonzalo, out of the blue, attacks me. He comes out and does this huge video about that I said he was dead when he wasn't, and then I'm not serious. And then he attacked me for the flip-flop. Scott Ritter says now that's a game changer. He's changed his mind. I don't trust Scott Ritter. I think Scott Ritter's a CIA agent. So I came back and I said, you can think whatever you want. I know you're an SBU asset. I know you're working for the SBU. Because the SBU doesn't arrest you, release you, and let you do the exact same thing they arrested you for unless they're controlling you. You're an SBU asset. You're working for the SBU. That's the only reason why you were let go. I called it out right at the beginning because that's the conclusion any professional counterintelligence officer would reach. Any, bar none. I guarantee you. There's not a counterintelligence professional in the world who would say, Scott's wrong on this one. You're allowed to assume that Gonzalo was released and continue these crimes unimpeded by the SBU. It is literally murdering people who are doing the same thing. That was the issue. And Gonzalo contacted me a couple times and said, why are you saying this about me? Why are you smearing my name? I said, because it's true. You're an SBU asset. Prove to me you're not. Tell me how you can be released from SBU detention, be allowed to continue to do the same thing that got you arrested with no interference. Oh, by the way, monetization. Gonzalo Lira is monetized, making money. How do you do that in Ukraine? So you're in Ukraine, in Kharkov, by the way, which is a frontline city, is crawling with Azov Nazis and the SBU who know where you're at. And you're broadcasting stuff which is saying horrible things about Zelensky, the Ukrainians, promoting pro-Russian views. Nobody's interfering with you. And you're making money. They're not interfering with you. We just talked about monetization, how if you say things that are pro-Russian and all that, they get nervous, they demonetize you. He's not demonetized. Why? Because he's working for the SBU. Now, what are the conditions of working for this? This is all speculation. I don't have proof of this. I'm just telling these are red flags. If this was counterintelligence world, if I were an active duty counterintelligence officer, these would be the red flags I'd be flying. And I'd be taking to my boss, say, Treat him as a controlled asset until proven otherwise. Treat him as a controlled asset until proven otherwise. Anybody goes on his show, they're contaminated. You have to understand that. Then you have to ask yourself, why are they doing this? And the answer is that this is a laboratory. It's a laboratory of behavioral psychology. Everybody that goes on Gonzalo Lira's show through this guided tour that he's the director of is giving insight to the SBU, to the British intelligence and American intelligence about who comprises the alternative media universe. Who are these people? How do they think? And it's not, see, you could get that just by observing. But for instance, you and I could sit here and have a conversation with somebody watching, right? But now if they have a question, how would Scott respond to this? Well, they have no way of knowing because you're doing your own thing. I'm doing my own thing. But what if you worked for them? Your earpiece, they said, ask Scott, what does he think if his dog attacked a cat? Scott, what do you think of a dog attacking a cat? Oh, I think dog attacking a cat is the most horrible thing in the world. Da, 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 da. Now you have the answer. Cause, effect, stimulus. And in behavioral psychology, this all builds up a personality database because in the human intelligence business, this is important stuff to know. And they're now getting it to the totality of the alt media universe. Everybody that went on Gonzalo Lira's roundtable, and he held a number of them, participating in a controlled experiment designed to collect data pertaining to behavioral patterns that are being used now to direct the discussion, guide the discussion, lead it in this direction, lead it in that direction. That's what intelligence services do in the human intelligence world. And Gonzalo Lira was a facilitator of that. Now, some people say, well, he could have done that unwittingly. I still don't know how. You were arrested by the SBU, charged with a crime that brings with it the death penalty, released, and you're doing the same thing. No, it's controlled. Anyways, that's what I believed happened. Now, when you're arrested the first time, you don't get released. Even Gonzalo Lira acknowledged he was under house arrest. Now, arrest means just that, arrest. You're not in charge of anything. I bet there's people in your audience who have been arrested by the police. I bet there's people in the audience that have had the police try to roll them. And if not, let's say your audience, like my audience, is pristine, perfect people, never committed a crime in their life, never did. We all know out there's people who do commit crimes. For instance, let's talk about the narcotic world, people who sell drugs. Do the cops want the small-time drug dealer on the street corner, or do they want the cartel boss? They want the cartel. How do you get the cartel? You roll the guy on the street. You roll him. And now controlling the guy is no good if he's in jail, right? If he's in jail, it can't do you any good. You got to get him out of jail, back on the street, and now he's selling those drugs, but you're controlling the interaction. You're actually helping him, by the way, because you're saying we're going to take out his competition here. He's going to go from not just operating on the corner of Wilson and 3rd, but we're going to bring him over to Wilson 4th, 5th, 6th, take him up to Spaniel Boulevard, and he's going to get a big territory. And now the cartel is going to come to him, and they're going to offer him a big contract. Da, 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 da. And now, boom, you get that. That happens. But while this is happening, that guy, everything he does is controlled by you, manipulated by you at the top, including his money. He doesn't get to keep that money. That money goes to you, and then you give him the money because you're in control. You're in control of every aspect of his life. And if he screws up, as they always do, you just rearrest him, put him back in jail because it's a parole violation of the terms of your release. Gonzalo Lira was released back in April of 2022. He was rearrested in May of 2023. I don't know why. He was charged with the crime. All that broadcasting he was doing, now criminalized. He's now charged with all that roundtable discussion. We don't know why. We don't know what's going on. What we do know is that basically, he got rearrested. I would guess the big thing might have been not reporting sources of income, thinking that he could be monetized and not report. I'm speculating here. There's other things. Who knows? I know that you don't get released and get to broadcast unless you're controlled by the SBU. I know if the SBU rearrests you, it's because you violated some term of the agreement they had. And then they released him again in July. He tried to make a run for the border, the dumbest run for the border I've ever seen in my life. Again, I'm not a professional criminal. I'm assuming you're not either, Rashid. But we've seen enough movies to know the following. We're out of jail. We are out of jail, baby. And they gave me my passport back, the one that I was supposed to turn in so that I wouldn't run away. They gave it to me. And here's your passport. Oh, that ankle monitoring bracelet. They took it off and they never put it on. And so you're sitting there going, wow, got a court date next week. And they gave me my passport. I got a motorcycle. I got stuff I could put on the motorcycle. I'm going to make a run for it. Okay, I'm with you on that. Cool, dude. But you know what you don't do? You don't tell everybody about it. Especially don't drive up to the border, pause, smoke a cigarette, and then sit there and tweet. Hey, I'm at the border. Shouldn't be here. Violate my terms of probation. I'm going to make a run for it over that border over there. Yeah, that one right there. I'm going to run for it. I shouldn't be doing this because it's a violation. I'm going to do it anyways. And God bless me and everybody else. Talk to you and do this. Hours. I mean, broadcast it. Then he goes to the border crossing point. He doesn't try to Steve McQueen. You know what I'm talking about, the Great Escape, Steve McQueen. You know, he doesn't go to a border crossing point. Man, the boy's going to try and jump the fence. He's going to make the big move. So Gonzalo didn't do that. He went straight to the border crossing point and said, here's my passport. And they went, you ain't supposed to be here. You're under arrest. And they arrested him and they got him back in the, okay. I don't know what's going on there. I mean, none of it makes any sense. This whole thing is insane. It's crazy. What I do know is that when he was originally arrested in April and released and then continued to do the very things that he was arrested for, that was a giant red flag. And I will always treat him as a controlled SBU asset until which time he can prove otherwise. And that pissed a lot of people off, excuse my language. There's a lot of supporters. Gonzalo Lira had a big fan base. He was a lifestyle coach. A lot of people started following him as a lifestyle coach, and that continued on. They became sort of this legend for the world out there who doesn't know anything about Ukraine. And here's a guy in Ukraine talking about it firsthand. He's a charismatic figure. I mean, he's not my cup of tea, but I can see how people can fall for the Gonzalo mystique. The disheveled hair, the cigarette, the casual, this, that, and the other thing. Big following. They all believe in him, and they are mad as hell. At me for saying what I'm saying. I don't care. My job isn't to please anybody. My job is to be accurate in my assessments. I'm telling you right now, any professional worth their salt in the counterintelligence business would be raising a giant red flag the moment he was released from SBU custody, the SBU that has him on a death list for publishing bad things about Ukraine, released from there, without harm, by the way, no broken bones. He's just all perfectly healthy. And then let him do the same thing and then allow it to grow and expand to become this thing. Very suspicious. So suspicious that it causes me to say he was a controlled SBU asset the entire time he was